you men to be able to stand for American principles, to know American principles and what made the country and why it's important. Are the politicians today looking out for your prosperity? Let's not forget these words, and we need to discuss them more today: liberty and independence. Why is it important to know the Constitution? The Marxists want to destroy it. Why? For power. You don't want a Constitution standing in the way, but who has to protect the Constitution? You do. Restoring men in history. And today we're going to look at a Federalist paper. Why is that important to you men? Why do you care? Because you need to know history. You need to know the founding. And the Federalist Papers were one part of it. There were the Anti-Federalist Papers. And of course, incredibly important were the ratification debates. This was a recommendation. And then after the ratification debates, of course, the Constitution came into existence. With the changes the Anti-Federalists wanted, some of them. So, history ties us together also, but it's you men that have to stand, you men that have to vote, you men that have to put the proper representatives in government. So you have to understand our founding to know who to put in office. Or if you're running, you have to understand that to be able to stand for American principles, right? If you think it's important to build better, stronger men, we'd appreciate it if you would subscribe to this channel right now. 77 were published in the Independent Journal. There was a big debate going on. Some people wanted to remain states, some confederacies, and they wanted a federal republic, the Federalist. Between October 1787 and April 1788, about 85 papers were written. This is to the people of the state of New York. They were having trouble with New York, Mass, and Virginia, of course. So let's read it a little bit, and then we'll make some comments as we go. Very important for you men to be able to stand for American principles, to know American principles and what made the country and why it's important. Do we want freedom or tyranny? We're headed toward tyranny, right? Keep moving away from the Constitution and denigrating it. So it's up to you men to what? Restore the Constitution, restore the Republic, be American patriots peacefully. When the people of America reflect that this is to the people of the state of New York, John Jay. When the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question, which in its consequences must prove one of the most important that ever engaged their attention, the propriety of their taking a very comprehensive as well as a very serious view. So he wants them to take a very serious view, like we should be doing with the debt right now, the debt ceiling, which we really didn't. We spend way too much current event, border, what's going on with our border. So we should be debating these large issues like they debated this. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government. So they're arguing for federal government, right? Bringing everyone together. Why? Why are they going to argue for this? Mainly for external threats, but let's watch. And it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights. All right, natural rights, unalienable, can't take them away, in order to vest it with requisite power. So who's going to vest it? Federal government doesn't have any powers. The states and the people are going to give it some, right? It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interest of the people of America that they should, to all general purposes, be one nation under one federal government, or that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies. So like I said, are they going to be one federal republic? He's saying this is the Federalists. The Anti-Federalists were happy with the way it was, and give to the head of each the same kind of powers which they are advised to place in one national government. So again, that's the question, one national government. Of course, the Anti-Federalists believed they could keep it going the way they had going. After all, they had just defeated the magnificent British Empire, the most powerful empire in the world. So the Anti-Federalists didn't see the reason for this, and didn't see it as a crisis at all. It has until lately been a received and uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people, prosperity for who? For whom? The people. Are the politicians today looking out for your prosperity, for the most Americans? That's just a question, or themselves. on their continuing firmly united, and they, watch this, wishes, prayers. So they're not afraid to say the word prayer right now in America in this Federalist Paper. And the efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. So, but politicians now appear to insist that this opinion is erroneous, and that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, so they think that union will bring them safety and happiness. We ought to seek it in a division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignty. So that's the question. Why would they do it? Safety and happiness, they're saying. That's the Federalist argument, at least. Let's ask how they're doing. Are they providing safety and protecting the southern border and the people of El Paso right now? Or are they more worried about Ukraine? All right, let's go on. However, we'll go into that with another Federalist paper. There's one that is better for that. However extraordinary this new doctrine may appear, it nevertheless has its advocates, and certain characters who were much opposed to it formerly are at present of the number. Whatever may be the arguments of inducements which have wrought this change in the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen. Notice how he says gentlemen. That's nice, right? It certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets without being fully convinced that they are founded in truth and sound policy. Are we going all over the sound policies now on the border and on the debt ceiling? So you notice the people today want to spend what I just read today, another $4 trillion or something. That's not a good deal for most Americans, and we can't keep spending that. So these large issues need to be discussed longer and taken care of ahead of time. It has given me pleasure to observe that independent America was not composed of detached and distant territories, but that one connected, fertile, wide-spreading country. And isn't it a beautiful country? I just drove it the other day through this beautiful farm area, down little country roads. And it was just beautiful. America the beautiful. It is a beautiful country. We want to keep it. We don't want it to look like San Francisco. I mean, look, there's federalism, so San Francisco can look like San Francisco if it wishes. But we don't want that in every place, right? Providence, watch how he says providence, has in a particular manner blessed, wait, let's go back, was the portion of our Western Sons of Liberty. Providence has in a particular manner blessed it with a variety of soils and productions and watered it with innumerable streams. I mean, we have so much in America to be grateful for, right? I mean, we have a magnificent land. We can be grateful every day. We have energy if the federal government gets out of our way to use it. We have plenty of energy. There's no climate crisis for the United States people. It's a way to control you. Delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. We have so much in the United States of America. And he mentions providence. What has happened before this? They just won a war. And he knows, John Jay, Washington knew it, that God led them through it, that providence carried them over this mighty British Empire. That's how they won. Washington should have been killed several times. We've gone over that. So he's not afraid to recognize the hand of providence. See? That's a Christian principle, right? Prayers and providence. A succession of navigable water. I mean, you could attribute, I guess you could have your own God and say that's providence, to be fair. But remember what had happened before this. We'll go into that later. There had been a great awakening before this in the 1730s and 40s. We'll pick that up. A succession of navigable waters, and that was for Jesus Christ, right? The Great Awakening was focused on Jesus Christ. All right. That was 1730s, 40s, which set up the war. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain around its borders as to bind it together, while the most noble rivers in the world, don't we have magnificent rivers everywhere you go out and you see them? They're beautiful. Mountains. I mean, we have everything in America. I love this country. Present them with highways for easy communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation and exchange of their various commodities. So we have a lot here. We have all the commodities we need. We can exchange among the states, right? With equal pleasure, I have as often taken notice that Providence, he says Providence another time, has been pleased to give this one connected country to one united people. A people, and watch what, so let's, before we read this, what would you think would make a united people? If we wanted the United States to remain together and stay united based on Federalist number 2 and what John Jay says here, what would keep America together? Well, he says this: a people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion, attached to the same principles of government. Now, that's an important, attached to the same principles of government. We'll get into that. Very similar in their manners and customs, and who by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war. I mean, that bonds you, right? A war. Going through trouble together, overcoming it together. Have nobly established general liberty and independence. Let's not forget these words, and we need to discuss them more today: liberty and independence. We want liberty. Patrick Henry wanted liberty. The Anti-Federalists wanted liberty. In fact, Founding Fathers wanted liberty, right? They broke away from England. So the Federalists too wanted liberty. What's he saying? That's what gives you unity, he's saying. What do you have in common for unity? How do you keep a country together? Let's reflect here. Let's go back. People descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion. He believes in, and we have freedom of religion, right? That was put in there in the Bill of Rights. We never wanted a national church, so let's don't confuse this. But when religion comes out of the home, and a lot of people believe it from the home back then, that unifies you, right? And remember what had happened. So what would the faith of the people be in 1787? Well, remember what had happened. The Great Awakening happened in the 1730s and 1740s. Jonathan Edwards gave that famous sermon, "Hands in the Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God," and George Whitefield would have crowds of 15,000 people. So the Great Awakening was focused on Jesus Christ. So that brought them together as well. Still had freedom of religion, and that was the point. They never wanted a national church, a Church of England. That's what they didn't want. Didn't mean they didn't want God in the home, if you chose it. But it was your choice, freedom of religion. And that's the way it is in America. It's freedom of religion. There will be no national church. There will be freedom of religion. The federal government cannot set up a national church, although it tries to set up the church of leftism always, right? Department of Education tried to push that down. Attached to the same principles. Now, if you are supposed to be attached to the same principles, we don't need cultural Marxists running around injecting their principles into people as they go through the schools, right? That's going to what? What would the goal of the Marxists be? Disunity, right? You throw feminism and Marxism and all the forms of Marxism. You confuse boys that they might be girls, girls that they might be boys. What does that do? Creates disunity. Doesn't bring you to unity and bring you together. Silicon Valley, Wall Street, corporate America, what are they doing? They're working against American principles, right? That we were founded on. They're working against the principles we were founded on. ESG, the opposite of free markets, because we had free markets at the beginning, not commanding markets where they would be dictated. And look at corporate America following their woke Marxist principles. So what are some of the American principles? Separation of powers, right? Decentralization, not centralization. Federalism, not a big central government. Federalist Paper talks about we went over it, specific few defined powers of the federal government, unlimited and numerous powers of the states, and the 10th Amendment. So the 10th Amendment was put in. Again, that's why you want to look at the ratification debates as well. So the 10th Amendment made it clear that the states would retain all of the other powers that weren't specified in the Constitution. Unlimited and numerous powers in the states, few and definite in the federal government. That's an American principle. Federalism is an American principle. Taxes. There were no income taxes at the beginning of the nation. There were no income taxes. Excise taxes were there. But now we've gone into everything, and guess what? The government spends more anyway. So there should be no new taxes ever. Think about this. The founding of this country, and it went on for about the people were upset for a good decade. But think of how Patrick Henry was so upset about the Stamp Act and Sam Adams. So they were ready to break away over multiple things, but the Stamp Act was important. So think about that little Stamp Act tax and how upset they were. And then today we just spent, I think they just agreed to spend another $4 trillion. Trillion. That's amazing, right? That's irresponsible, and it hurts you, creates inflation, hurts you, the American people. So anyway, health powers, police powers would remain in the states. Most powers remained in the states, and mainly what he's saying here is, and the other Federalist Papers, is the external. They would take care of the external. They say that, and I think we'll get to that. 46 maybe. Anyway, it's up there in the 40s. Federalist Paper that talks about the numerous and indefinite and the reasons for the federal government, mainly external, and domestic will be the area of the states. Are we doing that today? No, we need to restore the Constitution. This is why this stuff is important. This is how we can get along better too, because with federalism, California can be California and Tennessee can be Tennessee to some degree, because the states can have the entitlements if they want. California can have Social Security for their residents and big entitlements, and Tennessee can have no entitlements or minimal entitlements, right? And get the federal government out of entitlements, it's breaking us. And that's unconstitutional mainly. Entitlements were unconstitutional for the federal government to do. Again, you could do it in the states. So, American principles. The Marxists have their set of principles. Of course, it's for power and disunity, because they need disunity to gain power. So you're seeing all these Marxist principles going against American principles in the classroom and teaching kids to hate America, not love America, to hate American principles, because it's not that you think America's perfect. We've got a lot of corruption in the American government at the top, right? You just saw the Durham report, which just repeated what we already knew. That's a lot of corruption. That's a rule of law problem. Oh, that's another American principle, rule of law. You can have rule of law or rule of man. What are we getting right now? What are they giving you? That protects your freedom, by the way. All of these, federalism, rule of law, private property, an American principle that you can own your own home, that you can own land, that the government can't just take it. That's an American principle. It helped build this country. You had a stake in it. You got a piece of property that you could take care of and treat well and have and pass on to your children, your grandchildren, and build something, build a life. It's an American principle. Teaching in the schools, Department of Education, unconstitutional. What are they teaching? This is a real problem. From what I've seen and read, a lot of the schools are teaching hate America. America was built on slavery, and they don't teach the good parts, right? There was a world slavery problem. It was an American problem, okay? That was throughout the world, throughout history. So they want to change the past and destroy the good part. Destroy the good part, amplify the bad parts. Now, if you, why is it important to know the Constitution? The Marxists want to destroy it. Why? For power. You don't want a Constitution standing in the way, but who has to protect the Constitution? You do. You have to protect the Constitution and stand for it peacefully with ideas of why it protects your freedom. You protect the freedom of the Constitution. It protects your freedom. It's important, gentlemen. We need the Constitution. We must restore it. It's been denigrated. It's been damaged. Federal government has gone into unconstitutional areas. Local school boards, school districts, you can fight there. City councils, important. So there's a faction that wants the Constitution gone. They don't want rule of law. They want rule of man. Of course, if you want to be a tyrant and you're totalitarian, you don't want rule of law. You want rule of man. You want rule of the tyrant. You want no Constitution. You don't want anything get in your way of doing what you want in the morning and then changing your mind the next day. It's rule of man. It's whatever you want to do. It's arbitrary, capricious. So also, when you come into America, you want to teach people the Constitution and teach them to respect it and teach them why. Why does it protect your freedom and why do you want it? If they come into the country and they go into Marxist schools, we have a problem. If they're teaching immigrants to hate America, and hate the American principles and hate the founders and hate the founding and all there is that George Washington was a slave owner, that's it. He didn't charge the battlefield of Princeton and have a lot of courage. That's a bad thing, right? Again, tyranny of freedom. Large centralized government takes power, decentralized power protects you. Declaration of Independence is an American document that we like. Your rights are from your creator, right? Bill of Rights. First Amendment, the Marxists want your First Amendment gone so you can't hear other things as well as not speak other things. But the First Amendment protects you from the federal government doing that. Second Amendment protects you from tyranny as well so you can defend yourself from tyrants. Self-defense in your home, personal protection of your papers are written in the Bill of Rights. So these protections protect you. That's why you have to stand for them peacefully. Always peacefully. If you think it's important to build better, stronger men, we would appreciate it if you could subscribe.